तेषां गुणैर्महद् उपासकः तस्य दैत्यपतेः पुत्रास् चत्वारः परमाद्भुताः प्रहरादो अभून्महांस्तेषां गुणैर्महद् उपासकः. Would likes to repeat? तस्य दैत्यपते पुत्रास् चत्वार परमाद्भुता प्रहरादो अभून्महांस्तेषां गुणैर्महद् उपासकान् तस्य दैत्यपते पुत्रास् चत्वारः परमाद्भुताः प्रहरादो अभून्महांस्तेषां गुणैर्महद् उपासकः. माताजी's तस्य दैत्यपते पुत्रास् चत्वार परमाद्भुताः प्रहरादो अभून्महांस्तेषां गुणैर्महद् उपासकः. Word to word meaning. Tasya, of him, Hiranyakashipu, Daityapate, the king of the Daityas, Putraha, sons, Chatvaraha, four, Parama Adbhutaha, very qualified and wonderful, Praharadaha, the one named Prahalada, Abhut, was, Mahan, the greatest, Tesham, of all of them, Gunehi, with transcendental qualities, Mahat Upasakaha, being an unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Hiranyakashipu had four wonderful, well-qualified sons, of whom the one named Prahalada was the best. Indeed, Prahalada was a reservoir of all transcendental qualities because he was an unalloyed devotee of the personality of Godhead. Purport. Yasyasi bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarve gune tatra samasate suraha. In one who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are consistently manifest. Prahlad Maharaj is praised herein for having all good qualities because of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, a pure devotee who has no motives has all good qualities, material and spiritual. If one is spiritually advanced, being a staunch liberal devotee of Lord, all good qualities are manifest in his body. On the other hand, haro abhakta kuto mahad gunaha. If one is not a devotee, even if he has some materially good qualities, they have no value. That is the verdict of the Vedas. We'll quickly read 31 and 32 as well. Translation. The qualities of Prahlad Maharaj, the son of Hiranyakashipu, are described herewith. He was completely cultured as a qualified Brahmana, having very good character and being determined to understand the absolute truth. He had full control of his senses and mind. Like the super soul, he was very kind to every living entity and was the best friend of everyone. To respectable persons, he acted exactly like a menial servant. To the poor, he was like a father. To his equals, he acted like a sympathetic brother. And he considered his teachers, spiritual masters, and older god brothers to be as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was completely free from unnatural pride that might have arisen from his good education, riches, beauty, aristocracy, and so on. Purport. These are some of the qualifications of a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is automatically a Brahmana because a Vaishnava has all the good qualities of a Brahmana. Samodamastapasaucham, Kshantir Arjavam Evacha, Jnana Vijnana Astikyam, Brahma Karma Swabhavajam. Peacefulness, self control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, wisdom, knowledge, and religiousness. These are the qualities by which the Brahmanas work. These qualities are manifest in the body of a Vaishnava. Therefore, a perfect Vaishnava is also a perfect Brahmana, as indicated by the words Brahmanya Shila Sampannaha. A Vaishnava is always determined to understand the absolute truth. And to understand the absolute truth, one needs to have full control over his senses and mind. Prahlad Maharaj possesses all these qualities. A Vaishnava is always a well wisher to everyone. The six Goswamis, for example, are described this way: Dhira Adhira Jana Priyau. They were popular with both the gentle and the ruffians. A Vaishnava must be equal to everyone, regardless of one's position. Atmavat, a Vaishnava should be like Paramatma. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. Paramatma does not hate anyone. Indeed, he is in the heart of a Brahmana. He is also in the heart of a pig. As the moon never refuses to distribute its pleasing rays, even to the home of a Chandala, a Vaishnava never refuses to act for everyone's welfare. Therefore, a Vaishnava is always obedient to the spiritual master, Arya. The word Arya refers to one who's advanced in knowledge. One who's deficit in knowledge cannot be called Arya. At the present, however, the word Arya is used to refer to those who are godless. This is the unfortunate situation of Kali Yuga. The word Guru refers to the spiritual master who initiates his disciple into advancement in the science of Krishna or Krishna consciousness, as stated by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Shri Bhagavan mantropadeshake guru iti arhataha. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुर्भ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we are continuing this discussion from Canto 7, where we saw how Hiranyakashipu has terrorized the entire universe. All the devatas got affected. And now Narad Muni, in his conversation with Yudhishthir Maharaj, he now shifts his focus to describing the glories of Prahlad. In fact, in this chapter, Narada is going to just give an overview. He's not going into the details. The details will start in the next chapter. So at this point, he is summarizing Prahlad in his entire life. Because when you read this verse, you may be wondering that how Prahlad Maharaj was giving respect to his god brothers. Who were the god brothers in Hiranyakashipu's kingdom? He was the only devotee there, right? So, and he was like a father to the poor. He himself is a 5-year-old kid. So, whom is he talking about? So, he's talking about the entire life, because later on, Prahlad Maharaj, when he became a king, right? Then, in the course of that overview of his life, he mentions how he got tortured by his father, and then Yudhishthir became even more curious and asked details, and that's when the entire pastime unfolds. So, in this verse, in the first verse, text number 30, Prabhupada writes that how Hiranyakashipu had four Parama Adbhuta sons, right? So, do you know who are the four sons of Hiranyakashipu? Have you studied about them anywhere in Bhagavatam? So, in the sixth canto, 18th chapter, when the Diti's episode, the Pumsavan Vrata is described, in that a verse comes. It says that how the lineage of Diti is described in that section. So, there it says that how, I'm reading Prabhupada's summary there verbatim. The demons born of Diti are described in this chapter. In the dynasty of Diti appeared the great saintly devotee Prahlad and also Bali, Prahlad's grandson. Right? So Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha were the sons of Diti. They also had a daughter. Now their family is actually very, very glorious. That's why when Shukdev Goswami or Narad Muni here is saying that they had Parama Adbhuta, right? So they were very famous. So that way they were Adbhut. Adbhut need not always be a positive connotation, right? Like sometimes we say, na, Prabhuji, you are a specimen, right? So that specimen word is not some glorification, it's a euphemism, right? So, but everybody in their family is glorious. So Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, they also had a sister. Her name is Simhika. Does the name ring a bell? Have you heard of Simhika anywhere? Yes, very good. Then, so the four sons of Hiranyakashipu were Sahalada, Anulada, Hlada, and Prahalada. Now they were also famous. So from Sahalada, with the demon Viprachiti, was born. The demon Viprachiti was born there. Then Simhika bore a son named Rahu. Then likewise, the Panchajana was born there. Then Hlada's wife was named Dhamani. She gave birth to two sons, Vatapi and Ilvala. Does it ring a bell? Where do you hear about them? Again in Ramayana. Right? Agastya Muni, he eventually subdued them. Like that. Then Anulada, in his wife Surya, begot the sons name Bhakshala and Mahisha. I tried searching for them. I didn't find any reference. They were not so adbhuta, I guess. Right? Whereas Prahlad had his son Virochana and his grandson was Bali Maharaj. So like that. So you can see Prahlad in his dynasty, so many such great Vaishnavas, devotees were born. But whereas here, so what is really amazing here, so this whole seventh canto is describing Uti. What is the impetus behind our actions, right? And Bhagavatam has always maintained this style of presentation of creating two contrasts, right? Like for example, in those who are familiar with the science of cooking, they say that if you want to enhance the sweetness of a sweet, add little salt to it, right? And if you want to enhance the saltiness of some sabzi, add little sugar to it. Because the contrast brings out the flavor very strongly, right? Try that actually, same sabzi, right? But add little sugar and suddenly the masalas are hitting your tongue very strongly, the salt, everything, the flavors hit your tongue very strongly. So Bhagavatam is also presenting that style. Now, while Hiranyakashipu, one very dark contrast was shown, exact opposite Prahlad Maharaj is going to be described here. And what is even more astounding, now we know the pastime, we know the whole story of Prahlad, but imagine you are reading the story for the first time. If Hiranyakashipu was such a great demon, his son should be, at least, if not more, at least equally competent demon. But suddenly, here is one of the great, such a great devotee that Guner Mahat Upasaka, he is an unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And Prabhupada quotes this Yasyasti Bhakti, the very famous verse here, that how Prahlad Maharaj, because he is this great devotee, all the devotional qualities manifest in him. And this is a very, very a classical challenge that exists in the Bhakti theology to really understand, do good qualities come from Bhakti or To cultivate bhakti, we need good qualities. It's like the classical chicken and egg situation. Which comes first? What comes first? So what do you all think? So we have many scholars in our audience today. So the Vidyapit scholars or whatever, the course students, right? So what do you think? Everybody's turning around. Kisko bol rahe hain? Right? With bhakti, all good qualities come. Naturally will come. Did you say naturally or did you mean gradually? Naturally will come. Okay. So let's take a vote that bhakti comes first and then good qualities come. Raise your hand. Dekh lo, majority is on that side. You don't want to raise your hand? Okay, let's take the second situation that first we need good qualities and then that will whatever that will lead to bhakti or that will strengthen the bhakti in our life. How many of you say that? Raise your hand. You can't raise your hand for both. You didn't raise earlier? Okay, sorry, my mistake. Okay. Smati, you're not raising your hand for any answer. You're playing safe. You're sitting on the fence. Okay. Okay. So let's try to analyze. So when we come to Krishna consciousness, we are told that you should have sense control, you should be polite, you should be humble, right? So then that's how you can attract the grace, right? So don't you think some good qualities are needed to 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 cultivate bhakti? So it is a it is so are you saying it is necessary but not sufficient condition? Okay. Sorry? It's not even necessary also. Good qualities are not necessary for bhakti. Then what about those people? Now this is a very heavy statement actually. That haro abhaktasya kuto mahad guna. Right? If somebody has some very genuinely good qualities, they are very humble, very tolerant, very patient. They are more humble than the Vaishnavas that we see around, right? But they are atheistic. What about them? Extremely nice people. What about them? What do you think about them? Do they have good qualities? They have good qualities, right? Then why is Bhagavatam saying that kuto mahad guna? Such people have they have no value. But mode of goodness is needed for bhakti. Sometimes we are told cultivate sattvic habits. Okay. I'll repeat. So he said, to enter into the realm of devotional service, you don't need any qualities, but to cultivate, to advance later on, you need sattva gun. But to enter, you don't need the springboard of goodness. Sorry? Okay, to enter, you need mercy of devotees, but to sustain, you need mode of goodness. Okay, we can progress very quickly if you cultivate mode of goodness.
And in the 12 qualities, the surrender unto the Lord, that is the important quality we say.
Okay, yes,
And
surrender is like, for example, when we hear those 26 qualities of a Vaishnava in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Harinam Chintamani, he mentions that among these 26, 25 are secondary qualities, right? But there's one primary quality, which is Krishna Eka Sharanam. Surrender to Krishna is a primary quality, right? So, but then still, this confusion may arise that do I really need, for example, is it necessary for devotees to be self-controlled? Should they have control over their senses? Should devotees work on controlling their senses? Should devotees work on becoming humble? No. Ta-da-ta-da. What? We never heard this. What is going on? Prabhu, you are speaking Apasiddhanta. So let me clarify here. So, okay, let's take the most basic thing. Is waking up early in the morning a devotional quality? How many of you say yes? Raise your hand. If I wake up and sit on my stock market app, because with fresh mind, let me, work on my investments, right? Okay. Uh, does does being humble and being tolerant the quality of a devotee? Go to any corporate slave today. They are humble and tolerant towards the atrocities of their bosses, right? In fact, they are more submissive to their boss than sometimes as devotees we are to our spiritual master also, right? Sometimes if the spiritual master is little heavy, immediately people protest and rebel and start writing on the internet and this and that, right? But there, Tinadapi Sunichena, right? Yes, Mata, you are saying something? Okay, right? So, yes, Prabhu. Hmm. Exactly. So that's the point here. What is the motivation behind cultivation of qualities defines whether they are divine or ordinary. So sense control in itself is not a divine quality. Being humble and being tolerant in itself is not a divine quality, right? So the point here is, what is your intention behind cultivating those qualities? Now, when we see statements like this, our acharyas also mentioned that how only in a person who is fully absorbed in that akinchana bhakti, these qualities of devatas manifest in such a person. So basically, we are dealing with three categories of people. The first category of people are the pure devotees. The second category are struggling sadhakas like us. The third people are abhaktas. Right? Now, the first category, very easy to believe that, they have qualities. All the qualities, they come on their own. The last category, they have no devotional intention, no theistic inclination, right? Nothing spiritual about their worldviews. So for them, their so-called good qualities have at the end some worldly intention. Like even if somebody may live a life of simplicity, but for the sake of national freedom, that doesn't necessarily, make them make that quality a divine quality. It's a good quality, we should appreciate that, but it's not a divine quality. So the point here, good quality and divine quality, we're trying to differentiate, right? So this part also is pretty clear, I see. The difficulty comes is with the second category of people. Those who are fully not akinchana bhaktas, but in one lecture, His Holiness Rompa Swami Maharaj, he says these are two-pocketed devotees. Two pocket means in one pocket they have Krishna, in other pocket they have Maya. Right? So sometimes we like to put our hand in this pocket, sometimes in this pocket. So what about them? So in such people, the qualities manifest proportional to how much they are close to the quality of pure devotion. Otherwise, if their inclination is more towards karma or jnana or siddhis, then accordingly, the qualities diminish. So now the question that comes is, as devotees, should we be working towards controlling our senses? should we be working towards becoming humble and tolerant? The answer is no. It may sound little difficult to digest. When we hear the instruction, devotees should be das, dasuna, dasanudas, right? So being servant of the servant. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur in one commentary, he writes how beautifully that what does it mean to be dasanudas? It means to, at our level, to become the Lord's servant is not so easy, but to become the servant of the Lord is a more tangible target. Or in other words, to become subservient to the instruction of the spiritual master is a more tangible target. So the first step in the devotional life is Adav Guru Ashrayat. Submitting to the will of the spiritual master, the instruction of the spiritual master. By doing that, what happens? Suddenly we start changing our worldview to align with the will and the instruction of the spiritual master. As a consequence, you may feel like sleeping late, but then because the spiritual master told you wake up early and do your sadhana, you wake up early. So now there's a very subtle difference here. Am I trying to control my senses? Or am I trying to control my morning laziness? Or am I trying to follow the instruction of spiritual master? What am I doing here? This is how sadhakas make advancement. If you try to control your senses, which is not your mandate, it's actually Krishna's mandate. It is Krishna's job to make your, because who is the master of senses, including your senses? Krishna, Hrishikesh. So who can control your senses? Hrishikesh. Then what can you do? Engage in service of Hrishikesh. So when your focus is on controlling or on serving the Lord and the instruction of the spiritual master, Krishna awards you the ability to control your senses. Once his guest Jananivas Prabhu was asked this question in one brahmachari class, that how one devotee was saying that, oh, it's so difficult to control the senses and my mind is going crazy, blah, 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 da, da, da. Right? Then his answer was, why are you trying to do Krishna's job? The more you try to be Krishna, the more you will struggle. So even the ability to control your senses, the act of trying to control your senses, when you do that also, you're trying to be Krishna. And whenever you try to imitate Krishna, you will fall flat on your face. So your job is not to be Krishna, but to serve Krishna. This is a very essential mindset difference we need to bring about. Your focus should be, how can I best engage myself in Krishna's service in the spiritual master's instruction? Question already?
But if the spiritual master has the instruction that the control your senses or like that, then like you are saying, it's Krishna's job, but he's instructing that. Then how to see it?
Very good. So then, earlier you were controlling your senses so that you become a better devotee. Because you think by controlling my senses, I will master my senses and become a good devotee. Then you are not thinking like a devotee, you are thinking like a yogi. When you try to master Shastras and think, yes, I'll memorize every single verse of Bhagavatam, that way I will become, my mind will be absorbed in in the Shastras, and that way I will become Krishna conscious. If you think like that, you're thinking like a Jnani. If you think I will engage in spotless, perfect management, perfect action, perfect service, I don't want to use the word service, but perfect action, right? That way I'll try to master my life and that's how I'll become a good devotee. If you think like that, you're thinking like a karmi. If the spiritual master gives you the instruction to control your senses, then you're trying to again fulfill the instruction of the spiritual master. So you see, the cause and effect relationship needs to be understood here. The cause is trying to align yourself with devotional activities. The effect is controlling senses, humility, tolerance, all the divine qualities, respecting others, all this comes as a result. So this cause and effect has to be understood. Therefore, as struggling sadhakas, the reason we struggle is because we are trying to be Krishna. The more you try to take charge of your life, your senses, your mind, your abilities, your talents, right? Then the more we will feel limited. Because when you do things on your own, even in your Krishna conscious life, you will only grow to the limit of your personal capacity. And I'm sure this, we all would have had experience of this, especially those who've been around for more than a decade. You would have seen initially we are very happy with the certain assets which we have cultivated in our previous life. It could be education, or it could be certain qualities due to certain family upbringing. You may have certain natural qualities and you think, yes, I am perfectly right. But then after spending few years in Krishna consciousness, you'll realize, hey, the more I'm relying on my past abilities, basically relying on my past karma, I'm only growing till the limit of that karmic ability. I have never entered into the realm of devotional service, because devotional service begins after surrender. Which means surrender as in not complete Sharanagati, but at least Anukulyasya Sankalpa Pratikulyasya Varjanam. The moment I start that, then you will see, you will start growing beyond your capacity. Right? Like I remember when I first came here to GEV, so I was still relatively new. I only spent around what, 1.5, 2 years with my fellow devotees. So then I used to mentally judge some devotees. That, Arey, how this fellow is calling himself a devotee? He has such a sharp tongue. How this fellow is calling himself a devotee? You know, he is like, his temperament, you just touch him, he's like live wire. You just touch him and immediately bomb blast. Right? I used to judge them that way. But then when the GV construction started, I saw, oh my God, if you have to handle labor, I can never do that. Because these devotees are there, you know, the instruction of the mandate of Prabhupada, the instruction of spiritual master, you know, the glory of Vaishnavism is spreading because these devotees have certain abilities. So you see, on an absolute sense, a quality is neither good or bad. You cannot judge it. How well are they engaging that in the instruction of the spiritual master, in Krishna's service? That determines whether quality is divine or not. Right? So if everybody in GV were like me, GV would have never taken off. Construction of GV would have never happened. I'm the most useless manager whom you will ever see. Right? I can maybe speak. I can give classes all day, but I cannot manage 2 people. In fact, it also happened. So at one time, I was in charge for making this little fences and boundaries as part of the Griha rules implementation. So Gaur Charan Prabhu gave me 2 labor. They had to dig holes and put bamboo sticks and have to fence area, because we had to barricade the area where construction is happening. We had to barricade the trees so that the debris doesn't fall there, right? So then I thought you give them work and people work. Right? So I gave them work and I came back. When I came there, then every time I would come there after 1 hour, then they, from their sitting position, they would stand up and pick up their crowbar. And you know, they'd be like how a gold jeweler would tap with this little hammer. Tick, 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 tick. Right? Like that, they used to use their crowbar. So I was wondering, why is it happening so slow? So just to motivate them, I thought, let me also join them. So I also picked up the crowbar. So they were standing and watching me work. So while all this is happening, Prabhu came. I said, Prabhu, what are you doing? They are supposed to work. I gave these people for you to get the work done. Why are you working? And they are watching you work. I said, this is what is happening. Then he understood how, you know, people of certain mentality, they like to cut corners in work. So what took me 1 week, he got it done in 1 day. Right? So the point is that how we sometimes have certain superficial understanding of, we may easily get confused between mode of goodness and divine qualities. Mode of goodness is not divine, it is still a guna. Right? At the same time, rajas and tamas in itself are not bad, but if they are motivated by a strong devotional intention, they also become divine. So now the question that comes is, having understood how important it is that why these qualities, and we see that repeatedly throughout Bhagavatam, throughout Bhagavad Gita, whenever a devotee is described, a devotee is not described in terms of their denominations, in terms of their external practices, which mantra they are chanting, which kind of tilak they are wearing, what kind of attire they are wearing, which species of life they are in. These are not the defining characteristics. Whenever a devotee has to be described, the devotional qualities are described. So, having understood that these devotional qualities are needed, as struggling sadhakas, we need to understand what is it that we need to do. We need to genuinely learn to aspire for these qualities. You cannot cultivate these qualities, you can aspire these qualities. So, just to inspire our aspiration, I would like to talk about 3 reasons why these divine qualities should be aspired for. So, the first reason is that how these Vaishnav qualities, they help us to relate with bhakti and scriptures. See, understanding bhakti is very, very difficult. The only way you can understand bhakti is by seeing the divine qualities in other devotees. There is no definition for bhakti, though we hear Rupa Goswami gives one definition, Vyasa gives one definition, Narad Muni gives another definition. But these are just, certain indications. But really, if you want to internalize bhakti, if you really want to understand bhakti, you can only relate with bhakti by seeing it in other devotees. Think about your own life, that how our journey of bhakti began because you saw some nice qualities in some other person. I remember the first time ever, in the first ever ISKCON program, college program I attended. So one very, very wonderful Vaishnava, his grace Paramahamsa Prabhuji knows very well. He was there in my college and he was sitting there. I didn't understand, or I don't even remember what he said throughout the class. The only thing I liked about him is his calm demeanor. He's like, very stoic, very sadhu type, he speaks very clearly, gently. He has an air of calm about him. So the only question I remember I asked him after the class was, Prabhu, or what a sir, you seem to be so calm. Is it something to do with all these mantras you keep chanting? He said, yes. I said, oh, I also want to be like him. His demeanor really, his quality really attracted me. Right? So I'm sure each of you would have a story like this to share. So for us to relate with bhakti, these qualities are very, very important, right? Because because you'll see these niyamagraha and niyamagraha. If you what sentimentalists do is they only accept the externals of bhakti without going into the philosophy. Or mental speculators go too deep into the philosophy but reject the culture of bhakti. But if you really want to properly understand bhakti, right, so that has to be understood when we interact with person of these qualities. Because nobody can properly ascertain what the absolute truth is. Nobody can understand it. It can only be sensed and felt when we are in the company of people who have these divine qualities. Therefore, studying the lives of Prahlad Maharaj, of Dhruva Maharaj, of all these great personalities, it will help us understand, to relate what bhakti is all about. It's not about what externally they did, right? It's not what active. I mean, if you think about it, what did Gajendra do? Offer one flower, right? Oh, then bhakti means find a pond, get bitten by a crocodile. Step number 1, find a pond. Step number 2, get bitten by a crocodile. Step number 3, find a lotus. Step number 4, offer it. Is that bhakti? No. But when you read the prayers of Gajendra, then you'll understand the qualities of, that's how you relate with the concept of bhakti. And that's why if you see, even in the early years of ISKCON movement also, many devotees, they never really understood what all this Krishna conscious culture was. Very nice story when Prabhupada disciple was sharing that how in their temple, some Indian, he donated a tulsi plant. So devotees, they remember reading in Prabhupada's purports, third canto, that how Tulsi is such a dear devotee, and where Tulsi is growing, devotional quality is also growing. So they started every day worshipping Tulsi and offering water, and Tulsi was growing really nice. It started growing. It became like very soon it became like 1 foot tall, right? Then suddenly in another month it became like 2 foot tall, 3 feet tall. It became 6 feet tall Tulsi. Can you believe it? And they were so excited. They wrote to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was so happy. And he came and he saw it was actually a bamboo plant. So they did not even know the difference between what is tulsi and what is bamboo. And even that whoever that Indian who gave them also, I don't know which what he knows, right? That's why I don't trust anybody and everybody. So the point is, with that kind of cultural context, they made such tremendous advancement, not because of their abilities, not because of their understanding, not because of anything else, but because they were all touched by Prabhupada. Even today, you hear any Prabhupada disciple, the only thing that they would like to, very fondly, they will talk about is how their hearts were touched by the qualities of Prabhupada. Like something so simple. Once Shamsundar Prabhu, I was serving him, and he was saying that how when Prabhupada would cross the road, we all would just stare at him, because as he's crossing the road, it would look like some effulgence is glowing around him. Even when he said once, even a traffic cop got mesmerized by Prabhupada's effulgence, and he stopped doing his work and was staring at Prabhupada. Right? There was some glow, something so simple. Prabhupada is walking and he is glowing. Right? Even the ordinary things, how Prabhupada would spit the seeds, how Prabhupada would, click his beads. Some very, very ordinary things, how Prabhupada would wear tilak. They were all mesmerized by these simple qualities. Therefore, why Bhagavatam talks about all these Vaishnavas, all these qualities, so that we can relate with the logic of the tree, the moon and the branch. We can't see the moon. The closest thing for us is the tree branch. So you see the tree, you see the branch, now you see between the branches there, that's called moon. So before you see Krishna, you experience Krishna through these divine qualities. For us to relate with Krishna consciousness, we need to aspire, develop, and experience these devotional qualities. The second aspect is for us to realize, okay, now that you relate with it and you enter into Krishna consciousness, right? But the problem is, after we enter, we will forever remain in that Kanishta platform. Why? Because we are not growing in our Krishna consciousness. The realizations are not coming. Because we think that by studying Shastra, you don't realize Bhakti. Because the Shastras are state-specific books. Your consciousness defines how much you will understand Shastra. And what determines your consciousness are the qualities that you have. So the Bhagavan's Chit Shakti, it is described, it has two aspects. There is activity and knowledge. The karmis, they take only the activity. The jnanis, they take only the knowledge aspect. But a bhakta learns to harmonize activity and knowledge because they have a very important link. The link between practices and philosophy are principles, the devotional qualities, the values of being a Vaishnava. So that is why you will see, for us to realize these teachings of Prahlad Maharaj, we also have to imbibe the qualities of Prahlad Maharaj. Without imbibing those qualities, we can, just by memorizing certain verses or knowing the breakdown of chapters, we cannot really understand Bhagavatam that way. Right? So it requires you to imbibe that quality. So that steadiness in our, which is what is the differentiating factor between the Kanishta and the Madhyama, that steadiness element comes when the study is internalized through qualities. Right? So that's where this is a second reason why we need to, that is to help us realize. The third and the last quality, reason why we need to aspire for these Vaishnava qualities is because we also have to represent. When we go out, we represent Prabhupada, we represent the institution, we represent Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we represent Krishna, right? So like how in Chaitanya Charitamrita it says that how dharma sthapana hetu sadhura vyavahar. Puri Gosai ye acharete say dharmasar. So whatever, the acharyas, the true devotees, their behavior establishes dharma. And in the context of Madhavendra Puri, it is said that the essence of dharma is depicted in the life of Madhavendra Puri. So because eventually we have to also represent a whole tradition, a whole parampara, that's also a mandate that we have eventually. So therefore, we also have to become perfect. Prabhupada would always say that people come to our temples because we have good examples. I mean, think about it. Do we have the best accommodation in the world? Do we have the best eco-friendly standards in the world? Do we have the best cleanliness in our world, Swachh team, Swachh GEV team, right? Do we have the best food in the world, right? None of these things are there, but still people come because somewhere they want to connect to the people here. Right? And this is also a very important lesson for us that people coming here are not coming to just stroll around in Vrindavan forest or eat in Srinathji. They're coming to meet you and I. Right? So it's important that we also give that opportunity for people to interact with us, and like our dear His Grace Adikeshwar Prabhu, whoever comes to GV, whether he meets them in the Madan Mohan temple, whether he meets them in Ayurveda, wherever he sees people, he stops and asks them, oh, so how did you come here? What inspired you? What did you like? Right? And if he finds some connection, starts sharing Krishna consciousness with them. So that's the reason. And people at the end of the day, they'll not come back. Even today, some guests whom we interacted in the early days of our GV, this thing, they still have my number. They keep calling me now and saying that, Prabhu, we want to come, right? And so back then, we were the whole soul. So anything, but now I say, okay, let me check first, right? So, but still, people remember they come because somewhere, and I'd like to conclude with this one last point. His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj in one very beautiful lecture, he says that sometimes we very easily dismiss people as devotees, non-devotees, right? We use such harsh language. But he says that, actually they are not non-devotees. It is just that they have not been fortunate enough for their heart to be touched by another Vaishnava. That's all. And somehow we were fortunate that our heart was touched by a Vaishnava. So like that. So these are the three reasons to relate with bhakti, to realize bhakti, and ultimately to represent bhakti. That's why we need to also cultivate these devotional qualities. How do we cultivate it? We don't have to make a separate endeavor, but engage in the activities of devotional service as given by the spiritual master, as given by the acharyas. When we engage in those activities, naturally the qualities will come. These are like the medals of honor that we earn in the course of execution of our devotional service. All right, I'd like to conclude here. Any quick questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu?
That if we serve our spiritual master, then this qualities manifest. But is it also the case that anarthas also go away with the practice of bhakti, or do we make separate endeavor there? Or
so ado shatta tata sadhu sangha bhajana kriya anartha nivritti. It's not ado shatta tata sadhu sangha anartha nivritti then bhajana kriya. So anartha nivritti comes after bhajana kriya, which means when you are doing your bhajan, includes all the activities that are prescribed, then anartha nivritti happens. So the cause is bhajana kriya, the effect is anartha nivritti. Right? So let's take a simple example. Let's take laziness, right? Or even more relatable example. Do you notice how in GV I think you guys are around for about at least 1.5 years now, right? You would have seen how much? 1 year now? Recently you came. Okay. Okay. You will see now in the next 2 months, you see so many open potholes, everything is around, rubbish, all the trash is lying around, temple construction is also going very slowly. Just wait for 1 week before His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj is arriving. Suddenly, entire GV changes. Right? If you want to have a shock, just during that 1 week, you travel and come back. And suddenly, oh my God, where did I come? Right? Everything becomes clean. You have, you had what, 3 months, nothing moves. In that 1 week, everything moves. So in one lecture, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj would say that, for many years in ISKCON, every temple Prabhupada used to visit used to smell of paint. You understood? Just one day before or one night before, they would paint Prabhupada's room. So it happens. Why? Somehow we come out of our laziness, we come out of our comfort zone. So the anartha of laziness is overcome that way. So don't think I will listen to motivational talks, I will do this different kriyas, and that's how I'll overcome my laziness. Then I will engage in devotional service. So when the prayojan is clear, the abhidheya happens properly. Problem is our prayojan, we may not have the intensity of that prayojan. Oh, Krishna Prema. Right? So when the prayojan, that's why, has to be reminded regularly. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhuji has a comment. Please pass it on to.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, bro. Wonderful class. Just want one clarification. When you said that qualities, devotional qualities, we aspire for, and by the practice of devotional service, they manifest. That's what you're saying. So we don't try to make an endeavor for them. We just aspire for them.
Yes, we aspire and engage in the instruction as given, which means, for example, if the spiritual master gives you the service of go aggressively and bargain for the best marble ever possible, go shout, bargain with all the marble vendors, and come back and get the best marble for Krishna's temple. By doing that aggressive fighting and bargaining, you will develop humility. If the spiritual master tells you, hey, you are in the guest department, make sure that the guests get the best call. You should be a perfect gentleman before them. Serve them nicely. That's how you will make. Then if you do that, then that's how you'll develop humility. So one person is developing humility by shouting, other person is developing humility by by being gentlemanly.
In their heart of heart, they aspire to be humble because that's what will please, but they follow the instruction which is given, and therefore they'll get that quality.
Yes. Oh my God, I have a class in 10 minutes.
No, I'm just
Yes, please, Pro.
extending from there. He's saying that you just aspiration and you put your heart and soul into the service and just wait, everything will happen. All the
By
qualities
service, as in not just service, Prabhuji, even your sadhana, all the things that have been given by the spiritual master, the devotional practice includes your sadhana, swadhyaya, seva, all of that included.
As per instruction you're putting, you don't have to do anything.
Yes.
It'll come. But I have little, because I had asked one very senior, you have been always like this, these qualities? Well, then no. I had to really work on it. So now you said, well, so I was just thinking, but we as Amsha of Krishna, we also have some free will. So naturally there has to be determination. There has to how to resist temptation. So these things also are there, that otherwise someone may justify himself saying, well, Krishna's mercy is not there. Krishna doesn't want me to. And, he will not, may become a little complacent about, because, so I just, whether just engaged in service or also to be very vigilant and careful to see that, because you are not whole day engaged in service. You have your own free time. You have your mind is, idle mind is devil's workshop. So
a lot of things here. Let's address them. So when somebody says, oh, Krishna did not give me his mercy, maybe Krishna doesn't want me to, that shows a flaw in their sambandha gyan. Right? So the very understanding that Krishna doesn't want me or Krishna is not giving me his mercy itself is an incorrect statement. Right? So then so that shows, yeah, the second aspect is that, even when you said, this devotee said that, they consciously were working on certain qualities, we fail to understand that they were also engaging in lot of service, and that the qualities came as a concomitant factor after that, the engagement of certain qualities, right? The issue I have with this being focusing separately on the qualities is, over a period of time, suddenly you will become more Maya conscious than Krishna conscious. We end up becoming more fearful of Maya's prakop, of Maya's fury, than in the grace and protection of Krishna. This is also against the principles of devotion. Right? When we understand, when the proper sambandha is there, Krishna is the master of matter and spirit. He is a master of Jiva Shakti. He is also the master of Maya Shakti. So, by my effort, Daivi Eshi Gunamayi, Maam eva prapadyante. So, the only way Maya can be tarantite is by prapadyante. So, this point has to be very, very clear. So, being conscious is a good quality, but that in itself is not going to award us the strength to resist Maya. So that's why when you said idle time is devil's workshop, so the effort we make is that, yes, engage in Guru Seva 24/7. Find creative ways of trying to be engaged. Engagement, again, don't just equate it with sadhana, seva all the time, right? Seva sometimes, swadhyaya sometimes, sadhana sometimes, sangha sometimes, right? But engaging in devotional activities, that's how a wise devotee, wise sadhaka organizes their life in such a way that there is opportunity to engage in devotional service, or at least learning to see their engagements in a devotional way, right? So that way, like in the course of, for example, you are trying to manage a school, so much of frustration, children are running all the time, they're creating havoc, blah, 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 right? But then you should remind yourself, oh, why am I doing all this? Because it's a certain mandate that was given to me. So these are not problems, these are all service to spiritual master. So then when you reset your internal radar that way, then the problems will no more look like problems, right? So when the problems no more look like problems, then we'll not take shelter of our anarthas, right? So when that, so it's a whole cycle. So many times we see because anarthas are seen in a very demoniac way, we don't like to see ourselves identified with those anarthas. So we try to deny those anarthas, and the cause of the anarthas is some material energy or some material temptation. No, it is not material temptation. It is lack of spiritual attraction, right? So yeah. So that's why even when Gita says that, spiritual material attachment, material detachment and spiritual attachment are two sides of the same coin. Both have to be there, but the cause and effect one needs to be clear about. All right, we'll end here. Okay. Yes. Okay, one last question. Otherwise, Premla Mataji will be very upset with me.
Then
Mike,
approved? She'll
I
go to
don't know. Now it will be dangerous.
Now you will say sharp tongue.
Yeah, I want to be open because I want a better understanding. Now, whatever situation I'm in, right now, I feel that is Krishna's plan for me, for my own growth, right? Now I got this, I'm grateful to this, and I feel Krishna has provided this to me. I must make best use of it, right? But your family member are constantly worried that you're getting used to it. You're not, trying to make an, endure to walk. No, I feel I'm doing my exercise, I'm trying to walk. But there is a limit for everything, because how much ever you try, he has his own plan to do with you. I want to know how to go about it.
How to go about, because
Yeah, what to do? I mean, am I just getting used to it, or I should also be patient for Krishna, whatever his plans
okay,
are.
again, multiple things are involved here. Because you said family members.
Yeah.
Because member, especially the person sitting next to you.
And
right?
there were
So if you look at that person as a person whom you are emotionally connected to, so naturally, people whom we are emotionally attached to have the ability to also give us greatest pain. So then you may process their statements
Oh, yeah.
in a hurtful way. You also have the choice of seeing him as a senior devotee. And then again, not that you have to follow the senior devotee. I'm coming to this
Yeah.
point here. When you look at him as a senior devotee, your inability to follow the instruction of a senior devotee will fill your heart with some level of spiritual regret, which will inspire you to become a better devotee.
Mm.
If you look at him as a spiritual person and follow his instruction, then you'll get the benefit of following a devotee's order. If you don't follow the order, your heart will be filled with some kind of a spiritual regret, and that fire of regret will burn, certain misgivings that may be there within our heart, and that will make you a better devotee. So that way it's a win-win situation. But if you see him as somebody with whom you are emotionally connected to, if you do not follow him, frustration.
Frustration.
If you follow him, attachment. Right? So it's a lose-lose situation that way. So yeah, this would be my
Thank you,
take on
Prabhu.
this
Thank you.
situation. I think we should really end here now.
We have a very senior devotee here,
Jai. Yes.
Rohini Prabhu. She was head pujari in Hungary for 6 years.
Jai.
She's disciple of His Holiness Sri Ram Swami Maharaj, and several services. Her husband is the earliest Gurukuli student, and her in-laws are Prabhupada's disciples. She came here for some purpose, treatment. She met with an accident. She's also now she's crutches. So I'm just asking if she wants to make a comment on this, or because she'll be leaving in few days.
Yes. Yes. Please.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I have a not very important question. It's not as relevant, I think, as everybody else's questions. But you mentioned that all of it's easy to understand that Rajasic qualities can be divine. But what about tamasic qualities? Can they be also used? I can't think of any example.
How tamasic qualities can be utilized? Okay. When we need to take rest every night to remain our sanity during Mangalarti.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So actually the gunas have their positive and negative side. No guna is absolutely good, no guna is absolutely bad. Sattva guna has a good side of illumination, but it has a bad side of apathy. A very sattvic person without spiritual inclination can be very apathetic to the suffering of the conditioned souls. Sometimes we also err on that side. Rajogun has a positive side of creativity. It has a negative side of agitation. Tamas has a positive side of grounding. It has a negative side of inertia. So all the three gunas, none of the gunas are good or bad. It depends on how are we channelizing those gunas. Channelizing by our ego or channelizing by certain higher mandate that gives value to the gunas. This is my opinion. Hari.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Thank you.
ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की
Maharaj
जय,
to
हरि
comment
बोल.
there.